Hi everybody. Today I had game camp at the store and we were going over Mr. Peabody making the game and I kind of decided a couple of things that before I go on to my next task in making this game, I'm gonna have to do something about Mr. Peabody's animations because I don't like them enough. And I decided that if I don't like the animations enough, I may lose interest in working on the game. So I think it's a worthwhile thing, or maybe it's not a worthwhile thing. Maybe it's just me and, you know, my distraction from keeping focused. But whatever, I think it's worth it to me because animation's better for movement. And the other thing that I'm thinking I want to do too is instead of having the gun always on Mr. Peabody, that the gun would be something that is like lying on the ground and that Mr. Peabody could pick up. So I'm going to start over again here with Mr. Peabody. And let me just add a couple of things into the level so that I have opportunity as the game's going along. I think we got up to a point here in the level where, yeah, we had this that we couldn't walk over because it was a little too high, so we had to jump and jump. And then I guess I'll add one over here where you actually have to jump up on a platform. Okay, so let's do that right now. Let me select level, and will this work if I do this, that it adds it to level? No, it adds it up there. So this one will be one that you actually have to jump up to, and you pass underneath it or jump over it. Let me just make sure about the height of that. So let's just bring Mr. Peabody over there. And imagine he's right there. That he could go under it or jump over it. So that green line's the collider, which means if he kept walking, he could go under it or he could jump on it. And we'll make it a little bit of a challenge. We'll make a gap over here. Now he has to jump over that. Okay, maybe this is the first one, so we'll make it easy. There is no gap. It's just he has to jump over it. And then there's a space over here. So that shows that he definitely has to jump over that. Okay, and that one just came in the wrong spot again. Let me put it down here with this. Boop. Okay, so at this part of the level, he has to make that jump. And now instead of grabbing stuff from down here, let me just use the Control D for duplicate. And that way over here in the level, it stays in there. It's with the level. I'll just move one over. All right. So let's see how that looks first, because when I want to change his animations, I want to, what the heck is going on? Oh, the camera's catching up to him. Sorry. So let's put Mr. Peabody back into the game position at the beginning right there and press play. And the camera shouldn't have to catch up. All right, so he's walking. These I don't have to jump over. They're little bumps. And then this bump's too big. I jump it. There, I just learned how to do jumping. And now this one, I could walk underneath it, but that's too dangerous because if I do, I lose the game. And now I just have to make sure that the jump is high enough. Let's see, so we're going along the road and jump on this one. Jump on this one. Now, if getting up here, let me see. I'm gonna have to make his jump force a little bit more powerful. So this is Mr. Peabody selected, and here's his script. And here's his jump force right now is 12. Let's bring it up to 16 and see if that gives a high enough jump force. Yep, that works. So now when he jumps, he has a higher jump that he could do. All right. So that we know if we have any jump obstacles that we have, he can go under them and they're high enough to be over his head and he could jump on top of them. So that's what we have there. All right. So we're kind of making our level, and as we go along, the level gets more advanced, right? Then what I'm going to have, after we learned how to jump on a platform, keep going along, I need something to tell me where the bottom is here because I'm losing track. I may just keep going up and up, and the camera doesn't go up and down. It just goes sideways. So these grid lines kind of work, but not really. Let me just put in a very long ground platform that's going to be like the length of my floor. So that's the X. Let's see if I made it 50. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? It went way over there. Oh, that's position. Sorry, guys. That's not the right thing. Edit, undo. And this would be scale. So here's X. And I know it's going to stretch the image out, but I just need something to keep track of where the ground is for this level. And 50 may be a little bit too big. Let's go down to 30 and see how big that is. Okay, that's good for a first level's length. Now I just want to have that positioned underneath my, hello, underneath this. And you know what? I really don't like the way that looks. So do I have something better to be a bottom? Let me look in my bag of stuff here. Some graphics that I already made. I think what I need is a graphic that doesn't have any kind of texture to it. So let me just quickly make something in Photoshop for that. And come on, Photoshop. File new. Okay, and this is just going to be like the bottom ground. So maybe I'll just make it a dark color like black, or maybe this dark brown. And then in Photoshop, I have this tool here. It just draws filled shapes. So I'll do something like that. And since it doesn't have any color to it, you can't tell where it's stretching or not. I could kind of cut this down the size a little. I don't need all that extra. And maybe I just can't take it being so plain. So I'll put into the black, I'll just put a line in there. Something, make something green or something like that. And oops, that is the cut tool. Don't pick that. Go back to this guy. And I'll just put something in like this. There you go. But that's not coming across the whole thing. So let me start from out here. And I'll just put something like this. So that's the top of it. And maybe a blue one there for the bottom of it. Okay. And I don't know, just being creative. Maybe add a red one right under the blue one. All right, so that's like my definite bottom of the game. And let me just save this as not a JPEG because that doesn't have the transparency. I'll have to pick a PNG, okay? And then here is a PNG, so you have the transparency in Photoshop. It shows the checkered background, and that's how big it's gonna be. So let's say save, and I have it here in my bag of tricks, and I'll just call this the bottom. All right, now I can close Photoshop up. And I should have the graphic here. Did I actually put it in this folder? Yes, here it is. Now I could drag this bottom thing in here. Here we go. And that's in my sprites folder. I'll put it. And now I could use that to make like an absolute bottom thing. And let me just stretch it out for as long as I want this level to be. So I could keep adding stuff until I get to the end there. Now let me bring it up to so I can keep track of where the floor is the whole time. So I'll pick my bottom thing and just move it up here so I could keep track of my lowest position as I'm designing this thing. All right, so here I have that ground. And should I put the bottom in here? All right, I'll put it in the level. It's the bottom of my level. So now I could go on now with the ground, and I'll just do a Control D and move it. And I think what I want to have happen here right now is maybe there's something you have to, in the level, I'll have something you start having to climb up to, like it's like a hill. Then Control D of that. And so, and I'll tell you why I'll make it a hill. It's going to come up to there. I know the camera top, oh, that's another thing I probably want to mark. How high is the highest level? So let me just make a copy of this guy again. Control D. And no, I have him selected. And Control D for duplicate. Good. See, now I got a copy. And now on the second one, I'll put it up here so I know where the top of my screen is, just as I'm working. All right, so here I know I'm here and I can't go past that line. So I'll have this here, you climbing up, and Control D, and you finally get up there. I probably could just put that to 0 rotation. You get up there to the top of the hill, and there could be something there, a prize, and the prize, I think, will be the gun. There you go. It'll just be sitting there. And when you get to it, you could actually pick up the gun, and that's when you'll have the gun. All right? So that means Mr. Peabody, let's just, here's Mr. Peabody with the gun in his hand that we say there's a prefab already. I'm going to take this Mr. Peabody out, and I'm going to use a version of Mr. Peabody that is just him without any kind of weapon, because that's going to be our first goal, is to try to get a weapon for Mr. Peabody. All right, so let me see if I press play. What do I have right now? I have a gun that's appearing out of nowhere, and it comes over here, and I think I know why. It's because transform was part of the animation for the gun. So let's see, where is that gun? That gun's way over here, right? That is the same gun. It's just that the animation actually records everything about the object, the transform, and everything like that. So when I press play and the gun's over here, and then it plays the first animation, comes over here and goes up, I think that's because when I was doing my recording, you see I had this position in there for the object, so I could fix that, or I could just do the animations for the gun over again. So here in my assets folder, I have the gun, and what I think I'll do is I'll just do the animations over again. So I'm going to get rid of these original animations for take out and put away. And what happens to the animator? I'll take those out, take out and put away. All right, and then I'll just make some new animations for the gun. And the first thing I'll do before I start to do the animations for the gun is I'll set the position to 0, 0, 0. So I'll say reset position 0, 0, 0. All right, and I'm going to need a reference for the movement of the gun to make sure it moves in the right position to Mr. Peabody. So I'm just going to take Mr. Peabody here, and I'll put him at 0, 0, 0, 2 actually. Let's see, reset position 0, 0, 0. All right, so Mr. Peabody's there, the gun are there, and the gun is not a child of Mr. Peabody, but we have a picture of the gun here. And the first thing I want to do is make sure the gun, I want to adjust the size here. I think it's a little bit too big. So what I'm going to do is I'll just use this here. Well, the gun is selected, and I'm just going to put it to a size I think I like better, which is that. And then I'll say apply to save it as a prefab. Okay, now it's still at, now the position's not 0, 0, 0 anymore. Let me do reset for that. Bam. Okay, so there's a little blue circle here in the sprite. That's the position of the sprite. And now I think I'll start adding the animations back in. So here's my animation window with the gun selected. And if you don't have an animation window, you could just select the gun and then say window animation. Okay. So with the gun selected, go to animation window, and I'm going to create the first clip for the gun. And instead, I'm going to call this one holster. I'll just use some more advanced words. Holster the gun. And um, let's see. In position 0, if I'm holstering the gun, and Mr. Peabody's like this, I guess I want the gun to be unholstered, which I'll have the gun unholstered kind of like this, like he's ready to shoot the gun unholstered. And there we go, that's frame 0. And then at the end of the animation, I'll have the gun rotate up, so it's like on his back, and then move it to his back over here where I want it to be when it's holstered. Okay, so the gun is not connected to Mr. Peabody, but let me just review the positioning. Okay, so the gun starts off from the position and then goes up, off, and up. Now let me just see the speed of that. Let me press play, and it's going faster than I want it to. So let me just move this out a little bit, maybe to 15 over here, and see how that looks. Okay, that's a little better. We'll leave it like that. So that is the holster, and it comes up here like this. Now I'm going to copy these cells, Control C, and I'm going to make another animation for draw, to draw the gun. Okay, so I'll copy Control V what I had from the holster, and I just want to switch these guys around so the animation goes the other way if you tell it to draw. And let me scrub here. See, and I'll go the other way. So draw will start from here and go to here. Okay, so that works. Now I have my two animations, draw and holster. And now let's go back to the gun controller. And by default, it put the two animations I made for the character in here. And the first animation is the default animation, holster, and then the second one's draw. So now with the first animation, holster, the gun should move up when the game starts, up, but it's looping. So that's because by default the animations have loop on them. So I'm going to select the animation from the project window and then uncheck loop. And I'll do that for draw too. I don't want these to loop, these animations. I want them to play and stay there. So now let me see what happens. I press play. He's dropping, but the gun comes up to the holster position. All right. And that's good. Now we want to have a controller to switch the animation from holster to draw. And we want to do it based on a parameter. I'm going to delete this old parameter, and now I'm going to call a new bool parameter draw. It says draw the gun. And on here, draw has to be true to come down to draw the gun. And then to go back, make transition back to holster, draw has to be false. Okay, let me save that, file save. And now let me go to the gun script and adjust for these new animation names and stuff. So here's the gun script. I'm going to open it, and let's see. Get a pointer to the animator. Here they press a space bar. So first I have to see if the draw, which animation is playing. If it's the holster animation, then if we can remember from over here, that the holster animation is this one. Let me zoom back out. Is this one where the gun is up like this? See, it's up. That's holster. So that's the default animation. And in my script again, come back for me. Here, you press the space bar. That's the button to shoot that we're making the button to shoot a space. So if the animation is holster, which is this one, if it's true, then the first thing we have to do is take the gun and draw it. So we'll set the bool for draw. That's the parameter for on the animator window to true. And when draw is true, then it goes from holster to draw when draw is true. Okay. And then we just mark the time that we told it to draw. All right. And then we do, well, that's the first one that we're going to test right there. And then this should still be all code that works, except we changed the name of the parameter. So let me just copy. And right here, we set the parameter, which is now called draw. Okay. So here we draw the gun and we mark the time that we set to draw, you know, to reset the timer. And if we shoot the bullet, we reset the timer. But if the timer elapses, gets greater than put away time, then we're gonna put the gun back up into holster position. So let me save the script and let me see with just those little changes, and pay attention to the gun, what's happening with the gun. So Mr. Peabody's gonna drop because he has a rigid body on him. The gun doesn't. So here I press play, and the gun goes in the holster position. And then I press the space bar, and it goes in the draw, and then back up. And if I keep pressing the space bar, well, it's not going to do that code yet because, as you can see here, there's an error. I don't have everything set on my gun. So here on the gun, I don't have everything set. See, I don't have the bullet prefab or the spawn point. So to the gun, let's add the spawn point, because here in our prefab, we don't have that spawn point anymore. So I'm going to right click and create an empty object that I'm going to call my spawn point. I'll just call it spawn. And so I could see it on the screen. I'm just going to give it a little icon to display, purple icon. So my icons, there are gizmos, and right here's the gizmo drop-down menu. So I could show no 3D icons, and they all come out like the same size, you know, no matter what level I'm zoomed at. Or I could click the 3D icons, and gizmos like get a size, you know, and then I can control how big or small they are. But I'm going to leave it on this unless we start having problems seeing where those things are. Okay. So now this gizmo is going to be the spawn point for the bullet. Like, where does the bullet actually start to draw itself when we shoot? And the reason we have that is because when I had the gun selected, you see this is the gun sprite, and the center location of the gun sprite is actually right here where that purple spot is right now. And that'll have the bullet coming out like right here. But here's the hole for the bullet. So we want the point where the bullet comes out. Let me use the move to be lined up with the gun's bullet hole right there. So the spawn point will move up a little bit higher. Okay. And let me leave that there. And now let me take the gun prefab and resave it. Okay, with all this new information about the low bullet prefab. And just for the sake of not distracting us, I'm going to move Mr. Peabody off for now from the gun. Okay, so now we have a prefab where the bullet should spawn from, and now we need to take a look at the bullet. And if I put the bullet in there, right now this bullet, I did change the size of the gun. I want to make sure the bullet matches my gun size. So I'm just going to shrink it down a little bit to look like it could come out of that bullet hole. Okay, and that's a prefab too. Let me apply the new size. All right, so now that I resized the bullet, let me take that off. Here's the gun, and the script needs to know what the bullet is. So I'm gonna put the prefab there for the bullet, and the script needs to know what the spawn point is, that little purple point. So I'm gonna select it. So I'm gonna tell it what that little purple point is, the spawn point. Now the script has all the variables it needs. Now let me press play and see what happens with the gun. Okay, so I could draw the gun and then shoot, and then time runs out. And the only way time doesn't run out is if I keep shooting. Okay, so the gun is its own object. It could behave in its own way, and the position was at 0, 0. So now I just want to have a thing where the gun has its own collider. I'm going to have to give it a collider. So, because I'm going to have it sitting on the ground somewhere and you pick it up, right? So now let's put the gun, just for now, let's put the gun right on the ground over here. Or I guess I could give it a collider and it will fall to the ground. So physics, 2D, rigid body, 2D. So we could have some gravity. Okay, I'll have some gravity for now. And then, do I have a collider on the gun yet? No, so I'm going to add a physics 2D, and a collider will be, what kind of collider? Let's just add a polygon collider around the whole gun. Okay, choo choo choo. There you go. So now, if I press play, the gun should drop to the floor. It's not dropping to the floor, and I think that's because the animation is controlling its position, which is fine. But I don't want it to drop to the floor anyway, so I'm going to set gravity to 0. Okay. But I do want it to have a rigid body, so from wherever it's sitting in the game, when Mr. Peabody hits it, it could shoot. So let's see. I mean, you can pick it up. So let's take this gun, and I messed them up. I moved the bones. Edit, undo that. Let's take this gun and put it down here in the game somewhere, just sitting on the floor to get picked up. Okay. And Mr. Peabody will put you back in the beginning position over here. Okie dokie. So then we're going to have to know when Mr. Peabody touches the gun. Empty recycle bin. Because he doesn't have a gun. So let's see. On Mr. Peabody's script, oh, he doesn't have the camera yet either. So I'll give him the camera. On the Mr. Peabody script, let's take a look. And now we just have a start and an update. We don't have anything about collision detection yet. So we're going to add a function for that, private void on collider enter 2D. We always got to use the 2D versions for this physics and collision stuff. We're in a 2D game. And he's going to be colliding with things. He's going to be colliding with the floor and any other game objects. So we want to make sure it's the gun. So let's do a thing where we could determine what objects are in the scene. So the gun is a weapon. So we're going to tag it as a weapon. So I'm going to add some tags here. And we're going to call this a weapon, which is something that Mr. Peabody could pick up. All right. And Mr. Peabody, we're going to tag him as the player. Okay, so apply. And the gun that we tagged as a weapon, let's say apply also, so we update the prefab. So now we have them both, that they're both tagged. And now here in the collision detection, we could say if collision dot game object dot compare tag to weapon equals true. So if we collided with the weapon, then for now we're just going to print a little statement, debug log hit weapon. Okay, so we can just see if this collision part works first. And I'm going to press play. I'm going to walk up to the gun, and when I touch it, it should, whoop, the gun just went up into the sky. Darn it. You know, this is a problem. Since the gun has a transform, it's actually transforming its position. How do I make it so that it doesn't transform its position and it stays where it does? Well, I guess when it's on the floor, I don't want it to play the animations, right? So if I look at my gun script, and over here, I'm going to say a private bool has parent equals, okay, has parent equals false. That means if like it has Mr. Peabody picked it up as his parent, but at first that's just going to be false. So if it is false, I'm not going to play any animations. So when the thing starts, anim dot, is there a way I could disable the animations? Enabled equals false. Now let's see if that works. Oh, did I press save? Save, and now press play. So will the gun stay there? All right, the gun stays there. All right, so now I'm gonna run over to the gun and just keep your eyes right here on the screen. And when I touch the gun, I have to jump up for it. Oh, I touched the gun and the gun moved. And it keeps on moving. It's drifting in space. That's the rigid body collider. I could have it stay in position, freezing those constraints. But I didn't get that little message pop up. So why? Here's the gun. It's untagged. Let me put the tag weapon on it and press apply again. And is Peabody? Yeah, okay. So now let's try that again. So I think it didn't set off that message because I didn't have the tag. There. Now I have the tag hit weapon. So now when I hit the weapon, I want the gun to become a child of Mr. Peabody. That's one of the things. So over here, here's the Mr. Peabody function where he hit the weapon. So I'll make a function called pickup gun, private void. Should I do it in this thing? Yeah, I should do it. Private void pickup gun, pickup weapon. Maybe I'll have other weapons. And I'll have to pass it the collision object so I know which weapon I just hit. Collision. It's messed up here. Oh, collision to capital T. Bam, bam, bam. Ah, didn't do the auto movement. Bam. Okay, so over here I'll call pickup weapon here. Pickup weapon. And I gotta pass it the collision object. All right, so here in the pickup weapon, I'll make the weapon a child of Mr. Peabody. So, when you make an object a child, how do you do that? I think you tell the child to be child, no, not child, collision dot game object dot parent dot set parent. Oh, what is it called? Game object dot parent. Or maybe I add this as a child of my object instead. I go the other way around. This dot. You know what? Let's just look it up real fast. So go to browser, Unity, make game object child of another. And make game object child of another. Let's see here. And here is an answer. Transform parent, that's what it is. Gotta have the transform. So it's collision dot game object dot transform dot parent equals this dot transform. Yeah, because the transform is what? Is it a transform? Yep. So equals this dot transform. And when that happens, I wonder what will happen to the gun. Let's see if it like goes into his hands, or goes into position on Mr. Peabody, like the way we design the animation. So I'm gonna press play, and now I'm gonna run up to the gun. You already have to jump up here, and it's not doing anything. Well, wait a minute. It is moving with Mr. Peabody, but the position of the gun seems to be at the position where I hit the gun. So I just want to simplify this a little bit. Make the gun so I jump, and then after I jump, I kind of hit the gun. So let me move the gun over here. Okay, and maybe Mr. Peabody needs a spawn point for the gun? I don't know. Let's see what happens. So, I'm coming, gun, I'm coming. And boop, I hit you. Now, you're part of me. Alright, once you're part of me, the animations could play again. So, once you're part of me, the animations could play again. So I have to get oh man, how do I tell the gun to actually turn the animations back on over here where I said anim enabled is false. Here, anim is a private thing. Let me make it public first, okay? And this is a gun class, so here I'll get a pointer, I'll get a reference to the script. So gun script equals collision dot game object dot transform. No. Game object dot get component of the script is a component and it's called gun. There. So now in the script of the gun, well, let's just call it gun script. In the script of the gun script, I could do anim dot enabled equals true. And I should turn on the animations again. Ooh, what's gonna happen? Let's see. Press play. Run up to it. Okay. Touch it. Whoa! And I don't know what happened. Mr. Peabody is just flying. Yeah, we're gonna have to work on some stuff here.